Долгая пауза, а дальше слова монотонной басни. Друг хворает, как вы не видите.
Have you ever walked through a city and, truly felt the layers of history right there beneath your feet? Some places just seem to embody centuries of change. You can almost sense the adaptation, the survival, the constant reinvention. Well, today we're taking a deep dive into a perfect example, Maastricht. It's a city where you can quite literally walk through millennia. It's this living testament to endurance and, evolution. Okay, so for this journey, we've got a couple of great sources to guide our deep dive. We're looking at Maastricht, a European city through time, and also Maastricht, daily life, culture, and future developments. And our mission, it's basically to unpack these texts, really get a handle on Maastricht's remarkable evolution, and figure out what makes it tick today, from its ancient roots right up to its key role in modern Europe.
That sounds like a perfect mission for Maastricht. What's really striking when you dig into these sources is how you can trace this clear thread. A thread of resilience and adaptability through just incredibly different times. It has such a unique position, not just geographically, nestled right there between the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, but also as this historical crucible where all these major European trends really played out and shaped its identity. It proves time and again is much more than just a dot on the map.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning, way before Maastricht was even, a proper city. The sources mention archaeological finds along the Meuse River suggesting human activity here goes back, over 25,000 years. Paleolithic era. That fertile soil, the river access, you can see why it was appealing. You can almost picture early nomadic groups thinking, yeah, this is a good spot. Then, let's jump forward quite a bit. Around the 1st century BCE, the Romans show up, and they set up a permanent settlement, Trajectum ad Musam, which literally just means crossing at the Meuse. That name says it all, really. Captures that strategic importance. Then around 50 CE, they build this crucial bridge over the Meuse, and that connects it to vital Roman cities like Cologne and Vevey. So Maastricht really starts to flourish as a Roman town, villas, public baths, temples. If you go today, you can actually still see bits of this early Roman life in the city's archaeological museum.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, that early geography wasn't just convenient. It was, you could almost say, destiny for a city like Maastricht. Being a crossing point made it a natural magnet for trade, for military movement, and really crucially for new ideas. And speaking of new ideas, the 4th century brings this really transformative figure into the mix. Saint Servatius, he was apparently of Armenian origin and believed to be the first bishop of the Netherlands, played a huge role in establishing Christianity in the area. His death around 384 CE was a truly pivotal moment. He was buried in Maastricht, you see, and his tomb very quickly became a major pilgrimage site. People flocked there. This led directly to building the magnificent Basilica of Saint Servatius over his grave, which is still one of the city's most iconic landmarks today. You absolutely have to see it. So Maastricht evolved into this really significant religious hub during the early medieval period. Monastic communities popped up, churches like the Basilica of Our Lady, the Church of St. John. They all added to its sacred status. And that influx of pilgrims, it wasn't just about religion. It brought prestige, it brought intellectual advancement, it helped the city hold on to its identity and influence, even as political control started shifting around it. It basically laid down these spiritual and intellectual foundations that would kind of anchor the city through centuries of change to come.
It's really remarkable how that early foundation held up as the city moved into the turbulent Middle Ages. Because Maastricht found itself right at a literal crossroads of competing powers. The city actually straddled the borders of the Holy Roman Empire and the Kingdom of France, which led to this fascinating and I imagine very complex dual lordship system that went on for centuries, shared between the bishops of Liège and the dukes of Brabant. That dual lordship, it sounds incredibly complicated. You have to wonder, how did the average person living there experience that constant tug of war? Did it just make daily life chaotic? Or did it maybe, paradoxically, foster a stronger sense of local identity? What's really interesting here, according to the sources, is that despite all these political complexities and power struggles, Maastricht didn't just, scrape by, it actually thrived. It became a vibrant center for trade and craftsmanship. Its guilds flourished, making high-quality stuff like leather goods, cloth, metalwork. The city also built these expensive fortifications, and you can still see that resilience today in structures like the Helpoort. Built way back in the 13th century, it's proudly the oldest city gate still standing in the Netherlands. It really tells a story of Well, urban fortitude.
That's a really crucial point. Beyond just its location, the sources suggest that having these two overlords, often with competing interests, it sort of forced the city, forced it to develop this unique blend of diplomacy and self-reliance among its own citizens. They couldn't just rely on one distant authority, right? And this internal strength was severely tested as we move into the Renaissance, the 16th century. Maastricht gets deeply tangled up in these larger European conflicts, especially the 80 Years' War. In 1579, the city faced this absolute brutal siege by the Spanish army under Alexander Farnese, the Duke of Parma. The sources call it a dark chapter. Thousands of citizens massacred, the city's resistance just crushed, horrific stuff. But what's truly striking, even under that kind of severe repression, Renaissance ideas and later Baroque architecture, they still managed to filter in. And this wasn't just decoration, it showed this almost defiant cultural tenacity. Ideas, artistic movements, even under severe political and military control, they found their way through Maastricht's active merchant networks, its religious networks. It shows the city's spirit wasn't just about political loyalty. It was this deeply embedded civic pride, this cultural magnetism that went beyond its rulers. Which really raises an important question. How did a city, repeatedly brutalized and occupied like that, manage to consistently hold on to its core identity? It speaks volumes about an incredible cultural resilience.
So it really sounds like even under the most extreme pressures, Maastricht found ways to absorb these external influences without losing its soul. Almost like its entire history became this masterclass in resilient adaptation. Okay, so that brings us perfectly to how this adaptability was tested again, this time with the French Revolution. In 1794, during the French Revolutionary Wars, Maastricht gets seized by French forces, absorbed into the First French Republic. And that marked the definitive end of that centuries-old dual rule, gone. The French brought secular policies with them, which meant, suppressing religious orders, confiscating church properties. Now, while those changes undoubtedly disrupted traditional life, they also introduced Enlightenment ideals. We're talking modernization of how things were run, governance, improved infrastructure, new legal systems. Maastricht even became the capital of the French Département de la Mise Inférieure. So citizens were exposed to new ideas about equality, about citizenship. Though it wasn't all rosy, conscription into the French army, high taxes, that definitely caused resentment. But then, after Napoleon's defeat in 1815, Maastricht becomes part of the newly formed United Kingdom of the Netherlands. But it kept this strong French cultural influence, even though it was officially Dutch again. It just shows the city's amazing ability to absorb these huge political and ideological shifts while keeping its urban and cultural core intact.
Indeed. And the 19th century brought a whole different kind of revolution: industrialization. Maastricht became one of the earliest industrial centers in the Netherlands. And if we connect this to the bigger picture again, that historical adaptability allowed it to embrace this new era with, remarkable speed. Petrus Rigaud, he was a truly influential industrialist, founded the Sphinx Ceramics Company in 1834. And you have to imagine the sheer ambition here. He wasn't just building factories, he was building entire communities around them, transforming the social fabric of the city almost overnight. His factories produced glassware, tiles, sanitary products, stuff exported all across Europe, completely transformed the city's economy and its skyline. This industrial boom led to significant urban growth. New working-class neighborhoods popped up, railways, canals, and despite being predominantly Catholic and maybe seen as conservative, Maastricht really embraced technological change, became a hub of innovation. Interestingly, the city also stayed fiercely loyal to the Dutch crown during the 1830 Belgian Revolution, which kind of reinforced its identity as this Dutch stronghold. This whole industrial legacy really laid the foundation for Maastricht's modern economic diversity. It showed it wasn't afraid to shed old skins, grab new opportunities.
Right.
Moving into the 20th century, Maastricht, which was this thriving industrial city, couldn't escape the global conflicts, of course. While the Netherlands stayed neutral in World War I, Maastricht's border location made it a really crucial hub for Belgian refugees fleeing the conflict. But World War II brought much greater turmoil. The city was occupied by Nazi Germany in 1940 and wasn't liberated until September 1944 by American forces. The war left undeniable scars, both physical and emotional. Jewish citizens were deported, many buildings damaged. But, true to its nature, the post-war reconstruction was swift, helped along by the Marshall Plan. By the 50s and 60s, it had pretty much reestablished itself, even expanding into new industries. However, like a lot of European cities, it eventually faced deindustrialization, that decline of heavy industry, which led to this really crucial reinvention, shifting its focus away from industry towards culture, tourism, and education. It's a pattern you see in many resilient cities, isn't it? Finding a new purpose after an old one fades away.
Exactly. And that reinvention really culminated in perhaps the most globally recognized moment in Maastricht's recent history, the 1992 signing of the Treaty on European Union, commonly known, of course, as the Maastricht Treaty. What's truly significant here is how this landmark agreement laid the very foundation for the modern European Union as we know it, introducing things like European citizenship and paving the way for the euro currency. The treaty was signed right there, in the Maastricht government house. It completely cemented the city's role in continental politics, elevated its international profile massively, brought renewed investment, academic attention, and Maastricht University, which was established back in 1976, quickly became a leading European academic institution. It's known for its international outlook, its English language programs. And this raises an important question, really. How does this treaty continue to define Maastricht's role today? Because it's not just some historical event tucked away in the past, it feels like a living part of the city's identity, a constant symbol of forward-thinking European integration and a real magnet for international students and professionals.
Okay, so stepping into the present day, what's daily life actually like in Maastricht now? Our sources paint a picture of a vibrant place, cosmopolitan, charming, and incredibly walkable. It really seems to offer this unique blend. You get the Dutch efficiency, but with a sort of Southern European warmth and this international flair that you feel everywhere. People there really embrace outdoor living, it seems. Cafes spilling onto terraces, bustling open-air markets, selling fresh produce, flowers, and local delicacies like Limburg's Vlaai, which if you haven't had it is this delicious fruit flan, and hearty zervlies, a kind of rich sour beef stew. Sounds amazing. The old town with its cobbled streets and medieval buildings isn't just pretty, it's functional. Packed with boutiques, bakeries, galleries. It's also remarkably multilingual. You hear Dutch, French, German, English spoken widely, which reflects its border location and its diverse population, the locals, students, expats. And it has these distinct neighborhoods like Wick and the Jikker Quartier, each with its own unique personality, just inviting you to explore.
Yeah, and a huge part of that contemporary buzz comes from its students and its incredibly rich cultural life. Think about it. Around 1/5 of Maastricht's population are students, and nearly half of those students come from outside the Netherlands. They're drawn to Maastricht University's renowned English programs, and also its innovative problem-based learning method, which is where students actively engage with real-world scenarios, real challenges, and really fosters critical thinking and collaborative skills. And what's fascinating here is how student life goes beyond just the campus. These young people actively participate in events celebrating the city's heritage. They really integrate into the community, keeping the city feeling young and dynamic. And speaking of cultural heritage, it's not just locked away in museums. It's a living, breathing part of the city's daily rhythm. You've got world-renowned events like André Rieu's annual concerts, right there in the Vrijthof Square, draws thousands of visitors. Or TEFA, the European Fine Art Fair, widely considered the world's leading fair for art, antiques, and design. Huge deal. And let's not forget the 7-yearly Maastricht pilgrimage, which really underscores the city's deep historical ties back to Saint Servatius. These events perfectly showcase how Maastricht brilliantly leverages its past to create this dynamic, globally relevant present.
It's so clear that Maastricht isn't just, resting on its historical laurels, it's actively building for the future. City planners are really prioritizing sustainable development, green mobility, inclusive growth. We're talking expanded cycling infrastructure, big in the Netherlands, of course. Clever transformations of older sites, like turning former army barracks into modern university buildings. Modernized waste and recycling programs. There are also new housing projects trying to tackle shortages, and real efforts to attract high-tech industries, creative startups. So what does this all mean for you listening? Maastricht is actively positioning itself as this model mid-sized European city. It's demonstrating how a place can combine that deep sense of history and cultural richness with really forward-thinking sustainable policies and economic innovation. It's almost like a blueprint for urban evolution.
Absolutely. And if you're thinking about visiting, well, you absolutely should. Maastricht is just a top-tier destination for that blend of history, culture, and just enjoying yourself. You can visit the Vrijthof, that bustling heart where so many festivities happen, flanked by the stunning Basilica of Saint Servatius. Or imagine walking across the iconic Saint Servatius Bridge, the oldest bridge in the Netherlands, over to the artistic Wick district, exploring its unique boutiques, exploring the city's ancient Roman roots, the medieval walls. It's a must. The Bonnefontaine Museum offers this compelling mix of classical and contemporary art. And for something really unique, a trip to Fort St. Peter and the underground caves of St. Petersburg, it gives you this fascinating glimpse into the city's military past and its geology, often with incredible acoustics down there too. The city is compact, easy to get around, but incredibly rich in variety, perfect for exploring on foot or by bike. If we connect this to the bigger picture one last time, Maastricht is more than just a city. It really is an experience where past and future coexist in this amazing harmony. It invites you to slow down, engage, and just savor every moment of its unfolding story.
Wow, what a journey that was. We've quite literally traveled through time with Maastricht, from that early human activity and strategic Roman crossing point to a pivotal religious hub, an industrial powerhouse, and now a living symbol of European unity and forward-thinking urban life. Its story is just one of remarkable adaptability, its ability to absorb these profound upheavals, reinvent itself time and again, and yet somehow hold on to its unique urban and cultural core. It truly is a masterclass in resilience.
And this whole narrative, it really raises an important question for all of us, doesn't it? What profound lessons can other cities, or perhaps even us as individuals, learn from Maastricht's centuries-long story? The story of resilience, transformation, and its embrace of such diverse influences. How does the act of actually embracing its past, rather than trying to abandon it, allow a city to truly build a meaningful, authentic future? Just as Maastricht's deep and layered history continually shapes its ongoing story, maybe consider how your own personal histories, your foundations, your turning points, those moments of adaptation continue to shape your own future paths.